Five Nights at Freddy's is notorious for having lore that's incredibly complex and is subject to many a conspiracy theory by its fandom, just like other fandoms I've been in, like Zelda and Kingdom Hearts. Just like Zelda, it has a timeline that is hotly debated by fans, yet there seems to be a sort of general consensus about it. So please tell me that I'm not the only one out there that dislikes the FNAF timeline. It just doesn't sit right with me, and I'm gonna explain why. So the general idea of how the games are in the chronological order is FNAF 4, then 2, then Sister Location, 1, 3, Pizzeria Simulator, and then Security Breach. How I personally interpret this is I think that the release order of the games is the same as the story order. For example, having 2 come before 1 makes zero sense to me, not because it's the second game in the franchise, but because 2 revolves around new and revamped versions of the animatronics, while you have the withered animatronics, which are old. So it just makes sense for the withered animatronics to actually be the ones from the first Five Nights at Freddy's. So if 2 comes before 1, then why are the withered animatronics in 2, but they're in perfect condition in 1? And then another point of evidence that I see is people saying, oh, well, 2 is when William Afton started killing the children, right? But here's the thing, you only see him killing the kids in the little mini games, and just because you're playing the minigame doesn't mean that exact thing is happening right now. Like, the minigames could just be a retelling of a story that happened years ago. And then the main reason why I really hate this timeline is the technology level. The new animatronics in 2 are clearly way more advanced and expressive than the ones in 1, and that's also why I really hate the idea of Sister Location being that early in the timeline. Animatronics have always been an interest of mine. I don't really know much about some of the mechanisms or the engineering and technical stuff about them, but I've always just found them, the way they move, the way some people see them as creepy, to be really interesting. And the characters from 2 and Sister Location really don't look like animatronics from the 80s to me. Now, obviously, you can't compare the characters to real-life animatronics because they do things that they shouldn't be able to do in real life, like walk around freely or trap kids inside. But if you take a look at pictures of real-life animatronics from the 80s and 90s, it really doesn't match up with the ones in FNAF 2 and Sister Location. Now, Sister Location's animatronics have a very distinct style that can't really be compared to real ones. But it's clear between that and things like the hand unit that this clearly takes place in the far future after the first 2. Then you've got FNAF 3, which is about a haunted attraction that's about the urban legends surrounding Freddy Fazbear. And personally, FNAF 3 is really cool, but as a haunted attraction enthusiast, I really wish they did a little bit more with that aspect of the game, but that's another story. So my question is, if 3 takes place after Sister Location, then why doesn't the haunted attraction have anything to do with Sister Location? And I don't mean something like, oh, they salvage the Sister Location animatronics and put them into the attraction. I mean something like, I'm sure people would have heard about the stuff that went down, or at least there were rumors going around, because I believe it says at the end that, like, Circus Baby's Pizza World closes due to gas leaks, but obviously, you know, when Fazbear already has that reputation, people probably aren't likely to believe that. So shouldn't the haunted attraction have some sort of representation for those events, like a scare actor dressed as Circus Baby? Then we come to Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which is my favorite game in the franchise, and I've got a hot take about the lore. I don't think we're playing as this crying child that's in the cutscenes, or Evan Afton, or whatever you want to call him. This character existed, the Bite of 87 happened to him, but we are not him in this game. Instead, we are a child that has grown up hearing all the rumors and horror stories surrounding Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, and that's where we get the nightmares from. Cutscenes could just be a story that we grew up hearing from the friend of a friend of a friend who claimed to know the kid that died. Now, the animatronics in 4 are obviously supposed to be the way that a child would view these characters, but what if we've never even been to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria? What if we just grew up hearing all that talk about it, that's how our mind envisions the animatronics. We never knew them as the cute mascots that they were supposed to be. We just knew them as terrifying things. And that's gonna lead me to an even hotter take. Y'all ain't ready for this. I really dislike Michael Afton as a character. I don't like the idea that we've only been playing as him all along. It doesn't make sense to me why it would be him, since there's different names on the checks, like Jeremy Fitzgerald and Mike Schmidt. Michael Afton could have used a fake name because, he didn't want to be associated with his father, but couldn't they just look him up? And my question is, why does he keep coming back to the franchise if every time an attraction closed because something horrible was happening and he was right in the center of it? You got the missing children, the Bite of 87, the Springlock failure, the fire in FNAF 3, the sister location stuff, and he keeps coming back and saying, yep, I want to do this. This is a perfectly safe and fine job to have. You could make a point about him getting the jobs so to make sure that nothing horrible ever happens to the children again because he has guilt over what his father did. But I don't know, I feel like after the events of just one game in the franchise, take your pick of which one you want that to be, any sane person would be like, yep, I'm out. So the question is, well, who are we playing as the whole time? And my answer is you. That's right, you. You are the Night Guard. Or more specifically, the Night Guard is just a generic person that doesn't matter to the story at all. He is just the Night Guard. Except for Sister Location, you were never playing as an important character. You were just the guy that had the unfortunate job of looking after the animatronics at night. Like Phone Guy talks about how this job isn't what you expect it to be, or Hand Unit has that one line I really, really like where he's like, did you take this job as a result of a dare? Well, maybe you're just a dude that needs some cash to make a living, and this is the first available job you find and you don't think much of it. Or maybe you did do it on a dare, in which case I would love to hear that story. Lots of games have a silent or featureless protagonist that the player can project themselves onto, and I think Five Nights at Freddy's is no different. As for the William Afton of it all, I like to think that he killed the kids and then got springlocked before the events of the first game, and he keeps coming back not because of Remnant or any of that stupid crap, but just because he's evil. It's a horror franchise. He doesn't need to have any grand motivation. He just wants to kill people. I love the idea of the company, Fazbear Entertainment as a whole, being really negligent and incompetent, not knowing that these things are going on right under their noses, not performing all the necessary safety checks. They're always just cutting corners. I don't know. That's an aspect of the franchise I've always really liked. And there we go. Those are my crazy thoughts on the Five Nights at Freddy's timeline. Everyone seems to have their own interpretation of the game's lore and timeline, and I think that is super cool. So when asked about my thoughts on the lore, I just say Five Nights at Freddy's is whatever you make of it.